everybody. We're back. Welcome to another episode of the Sports Junkies. And today, it's finally back, guys. Well, it's been back for a couple of days, but it is back. We finally have NBA basketball again. Thomas Brookwalter along with Ben Baker and David Frias. Guys, good to have you. Hope you guys had a great holiday. Christmas, by the way. Holidays.
Yeah.
And, NBA started on Christmas. And, let's what we're going to do on this show, we're going to discuss a little the effects of the NBA lockout and do a mini Warrior preview as well. So we'll have a lot of fun discussing basketball on the show, which, Ben, is obviously a topic since the Mavericks won the NBA Finals last June. There hasn't been a whole lot to talk about for a long time.
No, and I think a lot of us really didn't give NBA much of a chance of coming back this season with the lockout. I know I would see those guys on TV and say, boy, they don't look like they like each other. And, well, it worked out.
They didn't. They didn't. I can guarantee you they did not like each other.
Yeah, I was hearing reports of they met and they didn't even come close to a conclusion.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what we were hearing all summer and all through into the fall. I mean, I think the big day, really, where I thought that's it, no basketball this year, NBA is over, was November 14th.
Right.
And that was when the Players Union rejected the latest offer from the owners, which was for 50% revenue and a 72-game season that was going to start December 15th. The players flat out rejected it and disbanded from their union, filing an antitrust suit. I thought that was it. I mean, Dave, what were you thinking when the players disbanded the union?
It looked very, very, very bad as far as, like, are we actually going to have an NBA season? You know, initially when the NBA went on strike, you know, I wasn't really too worried about, okay, we're not going to have an 82-game season. We'll probably have a 60-game season like we did in 1999. And I didn't really care about all the labor stuff, negotiations. But that day in particular, I remember thinking, okay, the NBA is in trouble for the whole season. And I thought, how can this be happening? You know, these are the owners, the players, they're rich as it is. I mean, they're just fighting over revenue to just get the percentage, you know, over over $1 billion, corporation, pretty much the NBA, which is, and the NBA players feel like they have to have a better share of it.
Right.
So on somebody that doesn't even make, maybe less than $50,000 or something like that, they're gonna look at that and just how selfish are these players.
And you brought up
owners.
You brought up an excellent point right there, Dave. And I was thinking about this when it happened, and I was on the computer writing up the ideas for this show that we're doing now when that happened. Yeah. And I was thinking, do you think? I mean, in terms of the fan base, for the NBA, for the lockout, do you think this is really good timing to be fighting over billions and millions of dollars when the common man is fighting through a horrible economy?
No, it doesn't look good at all.
Unemployment is huge, and they're fighting over, $2 or $3 billion. It's a little silly.
Not only does it not look good, it's just morally wrong.
Yeah.
One of the great things I will say about the NBA is it's one thing where there's a lot of good press of, visiting hospitals and things like that. But when it comes down to it, the NBA cares.
According to
trying to get a sponsorship deal there, Dave.
That's what they have on opening night, Christmas, in all the NBA courts, just on each side.
That's true. Yeah.
NBA cares.
NBA cares.
Well, okay, well, let me, Ben,
apparently they care too much about their money.
Yeah, well, that's true. But, one of the most outspoken people during this whole lockout and situation was David Stern, the commissioner of the NBA. Very critical of the players, and Billy Hunter, the players' representative, saying the players getting horrible advice from him. They should wonder about Hunter's decisions. And he saw disbanding basically as just, a tactic that wasn't going to work. Did it seem like he was sympathizing with the owners too much? I mean, I understand as a commissioner, you're going to be on the owner's side a little bit, just because they basically give you your job as commissioner in a lot of the leagues, and they, some commissioners like Bud Selig, the commissioner of baseball, is a former owner. But do you think David Stern was showing a little too much prejudice towards the owners in this case, or at least publicly in this case?
I'd say I didn't hear too much from the individual owners, so I'm not really sure. It seems like a tactic that, maybe he was kind of trying to think for the other owners when he made his moves, and it's a tough position to be in.
I think David Stern, I don't have too much of a problem with him as NBA owner. He's been doing it since the mid-'80s, and let's face it, that's when the NBA, really started to grow with Magic Johnson and Michael
Celtics,
Jordan.
Lakers.
And let's face it, David Stern will always be known as, as probably one of the best commissioners in major professional sports.
Yeah.
The NBA is now it's just a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's one of the most popular sports in the world.
Yeah.
And I think David Stern, he was definitely using a tactic like, I'm the boss, I'm the big daddy, and no matter what you try to throw at me, I'm going to get the last say. And guess what? When the lockout ended, the NBA owners and David Stern got the last say in their negotiations, especially with free agency.
Okay, so you don't think he was necessarily favoring the owners too much? It was just he was trying to say, look, I'm the boss.
Correct.
This is it.
Yeah, he was not at all intimidated.
All right, no, because it seemed to me like maybe he should have been a little more, bipartisan. Bipartisan, like just because he's the commissioner, he's between both sides.
Yeah, you have to work in agreement. There's going
Right.
to have to be sacrifices made on both sides of the deal.
Right.
But I don't know much about Billy Hunter, but I don't know. He didn't seem like he really wanted to side with the owners in the footage I saw of him looking very angry all the time.
Player union reps rarely do. All right, well, okay, Dave, you mentioned the NBA cares earlier, and we talked about
I
the
sure
NBA.
do.
Just threw it out there.
NBA has image. The NBA's image has been an issue for years. They've struggled with it. Players with huge egos, lifestyles, making millions and billions of dollars, incidents with the law, all the time. And then, of course, a couple of years ago, the brawl in Indiana on the courts with Ron Artest.
And Steven Jackson.
And Steven Jackson.
That's Jax.
What do you think a lockout in a situation like this does to the image of the NBA?
Well, I'm going to say I think the NBA overall is like I said, they have a good image, good positive image, and it's a global market now. Like NBA, like you can watch it anywhere around the world, and they have an NBA basketball game on. But I think this lockout definitely was risking their reputation, and I think if they would have continued this lockout, it would have turned a lot of NBA fans away, and they would have had a negative attitude towards the NBA, watching NBA games
Especially
in the future,
the season
and mainly
actually
going to the arenas.
Right.
So I think ending the lockout, I think, kind of helped avoid that. And as the opening weekend of the basketball season has already started, it looks like the NBA is back to normal. Like this lockout didn't even happen. So I think they were back in November 14th, like you were saying, it was very much in the danger zone. But I think the NBA has kind of saved itself from the process.
I kind of like that they started on Christmas Day. I think they should do that every year.
Shorten the season to 66 games and just start on Christmas Day every year?
That's an idea.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind a little bit of a shorter season. Why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll call David Stern right now. I'll get on to that.
Or they could play another month into summer. It'd be fine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because doing something like July, for example, the only thing going on is baseball. And we all love baseball, of course. Baseball is awesome. But, if there's the NBA Finals
Sure.
during that time, during that month, let's face it, I think a lot of more people might watch the NBA playoffs than, just a regular season game, Giants and Nationals.
It would make the summer
I
nights
don't
a little
watch
more
the Giants and
exciting.
Nationals, I'm just saying. Okay, well, let me ask you guys this. Now that, obviously the deal's been reached, the games have started. Do you think anything needs to be done really to bring the fans back? I mean, I'm thinking when I came up with this, I was thinking back, of course, to the big baseball strike and work stoppage back in 94, 95. Fans did not come back for a while until, Cal Ripken broke Lou Gehrig's record. Then you had McGuire and Sosa with their home runs in 98. NBA isn't quite as popular as, let's say, baseball or football. So do you think there will be a problem with bringing fans back? And if so, how does the NBA go about bringing them back?
I really don't think there's going to be a problem. Over in New York, the Knicks and the Lakers, they're not going to have a problem selling out. Even here in the Bay Area with the Warriors, I think they're going to be fine. I think the biggest worry was those small market teams like Sacramento and New Orleans. You could even say Oklahoma City, but they have such a good basketball team. I think they're going to be doing pretty well. I think it's the same as even before the lockout. Those small market teams, that's always going to be an issue. And I think that was part of the discussions. Yeah, like how can you fill the seats there? But for the most part, I don't think it's going to be as bad as back in when baseball went on strike and they had to come back in the mid-90s.
Why is that? Why do you think baseball is such an issue bringing people back? And the NBA, like Dave was saying, NBA probably won't be that bad. And if you remember the NHL work stoppage a few years ago, people came back. What do you think is the big difference there with baseball and these other sports?
I think it's kind of you look at like soccer, and soccer is probably the most popular sport in, say, all of Latin America, and then even going into Africa and Europe.
Absolutely.
I think basketball, the people that like soccer can relate to it easier because it's running the whole time with a few stoppages in play, obviously more than I would like. Too many fouls in the NBA, but as opposed to a sport like baseball, which is a lot more of, you're sitting around waiting for the action to happen. And I think people that get started on soccer can relate to basketball easier than some of the slower sports. And of course, everyone who knows baseball knows that, it seems slow at first, but then when it's fast, it's really fast.
Wild Card Wednesday, exactly.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, just the fact that, you're throwing 99 miles an hour, 100 sometimes, and the batted balls in play can be over 100 miles an hour, unlike soccer where, you can only kick a soccer ball so hard.
Right.
But, I think that's the reason. It's got a really good international appeal, and boy, great markets in Asia since Yao Ming was huge for the whole Asian market, and you got Ricky Rubio coming in from Spain, Nowitzki from Germany. I think that's one of the reasons.
Okay, Dave, any thoughts?
I think we just leave it at that.
Okay, all right. Well, then why don't we do this? Why don't we do what all fans love to do? Get out of the discussion of the law, get out of the business side, and go back to the court. So we get on the court now. Let's do it.
I think it's time to move.
I agree. And let's talk about our local team, the Golden State Warriors. Although, Ben, you've lived in Santa Cruz now the Warriors are closer to Sacramento still, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm teasing you.
Yeah, they haven't switched places on the map.
Yeah, exactly.
What a silly question.
I know. I had to throw it out there. All right. Actually, I didn't. The Warriors went 36-46 last year. They did have a 10-game improvement under their coach last year, Keith Smart. But Keith Smart is going to get to come back. He was let go, and Mark Jackson was hired as coach for this year. What do you guys think, Ben? What do you think about the performance Keith Smart made as coach of the team last year? And even though with a 10-game improvement, why do you think he was replaced with Mark Jackson?
I feel like Keith Smart did a great job, and I wonder if maybe behind the scenes the Warriors knew they were going to bring in Mark Jackson, because I don't think they wanted to let Keith Smart go, but they probably saw the opportunity to bring in Mark Jackson. And I mean, we're only 3 games into the season right now, but I'm like a lot of Warriors fans, I think, and I'm just blown away by how well they've played the first 3 games. And it seems like a 49ers 2011-esque turnaround.
Much longer season. Let's not go there. Yeah, basketball's much longer.
But I think, if you're looking at Mark Jackson, he had a great press conference after the game yesterday where he was saying some things that just reminded me of what Jim Harbaugh's been able to do for the 49ers. And
so
I got a really good feeling.
You're basically saving up to buy your We Believe t-shirts.
Right.
That's right.
You're getting ready for the new We Believe t-shirts right now.
I might be getting ready for playoff tickets.
Hey, I want to go. Okay.
All right, $2 will do it.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. Yeah, I mean, all right. Well, let's look at Mark Jackson for a second. Actually, on side note, Ben, it is interesting because with Keith Smart, because from what I read, the players really liked him.
Yeah.
The players like Keith Smart, and they were wondering why he wasn't coming back either.
He was an assistant for a long time under Don Nelson, and I think he was always one of the most popular assistant coaches. Anything I heard about him, from interviews with other players was always good.
Right.
Didn't have a PJ Carlesimo.
So he will not be getting choked by one of his players. Good.
Likely not.
All right. Well,
especially with Steven Jackson off the team. Oh, boy.
Right.
I had my head in shame and hope he's not
That's
watching.
That's in the past. Let's let it go. Let's look at Mark Jackson, though, Dave. I mean, he had a long career as a player, point guard from 87 through 2004 with 7 teams. Right. He's done commentary for ESPN, ABC, and the Yes Network. A lot of postseason experience, including 1 trip to the finals as a player in 2000. He has no coaching experience, though. So what do you think, what does he bring to the Warriors organization and how will he help this club?
I think he brings a lot. I think with new ownership coming in for the Golden State Warriors, they wanted to have a head coach that has a good reputation that players are going to respect, and that's going to change the philosophy, I guess, from the dysfunction of the Warriors that's been for the last 15 somewhat years. Even though they had that brief moment of glory back in 2007 with the We Believe Warriors, but other than that, Mark Jackson, he's done everything that you want in a basketball player. He's been in the playoffs, been in the finals. He was a great college player at St. John's. He's the all-time assist leader as a point guard. Very, very impressive. And he wasn't the most athletic player. He wasn't the quickest player, but he has such smarts and instinct. And he was a team player. And those are the kind of influences and qualities you want to bring, especially to an organization like the Golden State Warriors. And Stephen Curry and Monta Ellis will definitely have their ears tuned to what Coach Jackson's going to say, because he's not going to mess around. He has just the attitude. He's trying to bring a defensive presence, and I think it's already worked in the last few victories over the Bulls, and then when they beat the Knicks. And so I think that's a good start. And so I definitely see positive things coming the Warriors' way, leading with Coach Jackson.
Well, Ben, I mean, you mentioned Monta Ellis and Stephen Curry, and these are a couple of young players. Do you think having a player, so-called, I guess you call him a player's coach, since he was a former player, do you think that's important when you have a young team like this, when you're trying to build someone who's been there? And like I said, he was a player for a very long time. Someone who's been there on the court, knows what these young guys are going through.
Yeah, I do. Obviously not every single former NBA player that's tried to make as a head coach has done well.
Right.
But it lends an air of credibility. And, it's not even that long ago that he was one of the best point guards in NBA history. And, yeah, God, it's got to be a great influence on Monte and Steph Curry. And, he said in the press conference last night, we're a defensive team. And I said, like everybody else, geez, are we talking about the Warriors?
Yeah, exactly.
I was just coming to that. Actually, yeah. Ben. Last year you just mentioned they were at the top of the league in offense. They were ranked 7th in overall scoring last year, but defense. Ben just said they couldn't stop anybody. They were 27th in defense in the entire NBA, also near the bottom in turnovers and rebounds. What do they have? What does Mark Jackson and the team on the court? What do they have to do to improve those stats? And play better is not an option. To say, go ahead.
They have a young team right now.
Right.
Andres Biedrins, I think he's going to be very important as far as with defense, getting the rebounds and block shots. If he can at least recover that, because it seems like the last couple of years Andres Biedrins has been really off. Maybe it was because Coach Nelson was hard on him, and he lost confidence. And I think Mark Jackson is trying to, lift his spirits, let him know that, hey, you got enough talent, you're my starting center. And so, I think Biedrins, if he could really play good defensively, I'm not looking for him to score. At least if he does 10 points a game, that'd be great as well. I think that's really going to help things out. They brought in Kwame Brown as a backup. I think we're looking more like getting defensive rebounds, because we got enough scorers already. That isn't an issue, and you point that out with the stat. It's about getting defensive players, and maybe in the future they'll pick up. Maybe by trade they'll get more defensive presence. But for now, I look at those players. At the center position, Darrell Wright. He's a pretty good defender as well. So I just think as a team, the philosophy, if they practice defense and they really mean it and they don't forget it when they're on the court on game day, I think that's a start right there.
When did we practice yesterday?
Exactly. I think that happened way too many times where it didn't translate on the court when they were doing their practice drills. But I think in this case they're going to start using those drills and incorporate it into the game action.
If I can add to that. Defensive rebounding has always been a huge problem for them. They've been horrible in the post. They build Biedrins as kind of the big man of the future ever since he came to the team, and he hasn't really gotten it done. Right. He's a good player, but to rely on him as your backbone at center it's a little shaky. And even though he gained 10 pounds in the off season, it might be all muscle, but that might not be enough. He's just not the strongest player down low, and bringing in David Lee was a big move.
Exactly.
And I'm glad they brought in Kwame Brown, because I think if him and Biedrins split the time at center and everyone else plays about how they should, they might not be the deepest team in the world, so health is going to be a concern. But if they all stay healthy, they're really strong throughout the top of their front line.
Okay, all right. Well, Ben, you mentioned on just being the big man, being what they consider to be, their big man. We saw the last couple of weeks before the season started, the Warriors were desperately trying to get another big man. They couldn't, they went for Tyson Chandler. He ended up signing with the Knicks. Tried to sign DeAndre Johnson. He didn't come. You mentioned, Dave, they did sign Kwame Brown. They also have signed small forward Dominic McGuire. Do you like the moves they've made? And of the new player, who do you think will have the biggest impact?
If I can also add, Ekpe Udoh, it's his second year of development, and I heard something really good in the press conference when Mark Jackson was saying, I'm not giving up on this guy, even though he's had some bad games. Whereas, boy, in the past, it seems like the relationship between Nelson and his rookies was so distant, and it was just like mysterious.
Knew it. It was talked about all the time. Yeah, absolutely.
They'd say, why is he not playing this guy? And he wouldn't even really give a good answer. Right. Or sometimes it'd be so weird. And no disrespect to Nelson, but we just happened to get him at the tail end of his career, and I think he wasn't quite the same coach that he was in his prime. But yeah, going out and getting the offseason acquisitions of also drafting Jenkins and their first round guy, Klay Thompson. Right. He's been a good 3, and like I said, they're not the deepest team in the world, but Klay Thompson might be suitable as like a backup to Darrell Wright for now, and Jenkins could be a good backup point guard. You obviously don't want to see Curry or Ellis miss too much time, but then getting Brandon Rush I thought was huge. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's had the same career that people had thought he would up to this point, but he's an over 40% three-point shooter. And he's a big shooting guard, which is important because Ellis is your main guy, but he's really undersized for a shooting guard. So to have someone like Rush who can step in and handle those big shooting guards on defense, I think could be a huge step, especially on the defensive side for the Warriors.
Okay, well, and we just, we had Ben talk about the new players and who would have the biggest impact. Who do you think, Dave, is the key? Is there one player or a couple of players who are the key to the Warriors having a successful season?
I'm going to say the starting 5. That's the strength of the team right there, because you have a young bench, and Brandon Rush is definitely a great addition because he provides the 6th man, coming up the first scorer off the bench. And then you have the rookies, Thompson and Jenkins, and they're going to go through some bumps and bruises. They'll come along eventually, but the starting 5, with Curry, he's had the ankle situation, and that's going to be something the Warriors are going to have to monitor. But when him and Ellis are clicking, they're one of the quickest 1-2 guard duos in the NBA. And then Darrell Wright, if he continues the success he had last year, first year with the Warriors, and then David Lee, if you could expect at least 15 and 10 a night, that's all you could pretty much ask for. And so if the starting 5, they could remain consistent. They're not going to always, they're probably going to have some off nights, especially with good defensive teams. But if they could remain consistent, give the bench, at least 10 points a game off the bench, the Warriors, I think they're going to most likely at least have a 500 record.
Ben, do you have someone who's a big key?
I'd say there's 2 big X factors on that front line. Actually, I think the biggest key to the season is going to be health, and it's one of those things where you can't necessarily do anything about it. You can try, but is Monta Ellis going to stop going for those wild layups on fast breaks? I think not. It's just so much a part of his game. But boy, I cringe every time I see him fall. But I think David Lee and Darrell Wright, right there, if they're going to take a big step forward, probably the first place they need to do is defense and rebounding. Right. And if David Lee can turn back into that 11 rebound a game guy, where I think he was still almost 10 last year, and just really dominate the boards and have, maybe Kwame and Biedrins kind of be a secondary factor on the rebounds. And then Darrell Wright, I think, is a guy who's really in his prime right now and has got the all-around abilities to be like a serious star in the league. I could see him stepping into 20 points a game. He probably won't with all the other scoring that they have, but if he can be a really strong part of the team, I think that'll be pivotal for them. Okay, Dave, realistically, could the Warriors be a playoff team this year? I think so. They could. I could see them getting the 8th seed in the Western Conference.
It's going to be
Because
tough.
Warrior fans will take it.
Yeah, exactly. Just making the
They
playoffs.
made it
I
once
think
in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I think since Coach Jackson got hired and the new management with Lake-Up, and they've come in and they've had the great outlook, and they got Jerry West on board.
Right.
I think if you can at least make the playoffs, that's a positive first step, because the Warriors. I mean, this management team, they're talking not only going to the finals, they want a title. They're looking for a championship. They're really being ambitious. But I think getting into the playoffs would be a good positive step, and that's all you're going to look for. And then anything else that happens
and
is
I think you want that from an ownership, especially a new ownership, to come in and say, we're not happy with what's been going on. We want a title. We will not be happy until we get that title. That's what we're shooting for. You don't want to say, we're shooting for the playoffs. Well, thank you. That's very nice. No, we want a title. All right, real quick, you guys.
That's it exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear.
Exactly. I think we'd all agree with that. Ben, playoff. You think they're still rebuilding? You think they can make the playoffs this year?
Oh, I think it's just like Dave said. I think they can squeak in. Maybe you get a 7 seed, maybe an 8. But I don't think they're going to contend for the title this year. No. Not with the lack of depth that they have right now. But if guys like Udo, Klay Thompson develop, Jenkins, if they become a deep team, I think that's what you really need to survive in the late rounds of the playoffs. And the Warriors aren't quite there yet, but I think playoffs this year. Maybe they make a run at it next year.
You like the direction they're going in.
Absolutely. And, I forgot to mention the ownership and bringing in Jerry West, and both those things have been huge.
All right, real quick, guys. Quick predictions. Ben, we'll start with you. Where will the Warriors finish 2011-2012?
I think they'll probably be an early round exit in the playoffs, but I do like them to get in.
8 seed? 7? What do you think?
Say 7. Lucky 7.
Oh, you're thinking high. I like that. You're thinking high. All right. Dave?
I think they'll have a 500 record, and I think they'll probably get an 8 seed. And I think that's good as it. I think that's as good as it is right there. And so that's where I see them going.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be a fun. I think like Ben mentioned, I think we all agree the Warriors are finally possibly heading in the right direction. And, we can see some great, we've already seen, it's early, but we've seen some good basketball already. And hopefully the Warriors can keep it up, and even if they don't make the playoffs, make a good run and give Warrior fans some hope. I think that's what all Warrior fans are looking for, is some hope that finally something's going to go right. We're going in the right direction. The ownership cares. They want to win. And we're going to be a force to be reckoned with, whether we're in Oakland or in San Francisco or wherever they end up in the next few years. All right, that has been the NBA show. A lot of fun coming up. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching the Sports Junkies as usual. See you again later.